Hello everybody, and this is JoJOverdrive. Welcome back to part 2 of our JoJolion retrospective. We are going to be covering everything in between Tsurugi's fight and up to Vitamin C and Killer Queen in this section. So everyone, make sure to like and comment your thoughts about this whole section of JoJolion, or honestly, how this connects to any other section of JoJolion. But we're going to be focusing mostly on this portion. And starting off, we go with Paper Moon King, which is kind of fillery, kind of not, but most importantly is the introduction of Tsurugi, which is like the main plot thing besides Holly that is going on in the story that connects the Higashikatas and Josuke together. So, what are our thoughts?
Well, it also contains a very important character that plays a massive role later on, the Bling Bling Baby.
Yes, it's the massively fan favorite Bling Bling Baby, as it has been dubbed. That is it a plot hole? Is it not?
It's not a plot hole. It's literally just him saying that miracles happen in Morio.
It's a bit mishandled. I will admit it's a bit. It's a bit of a. You think it's gonna lead to something more.
It's definitely not an Araki forgot.
For those who missed it, because it is again, it shows up one panel and it's gone. After finishing the news article, of Johnny Joestar's legend or whatever, Yasuho sees around the time there was a baby that washed up on shore and it was wearing a bunch of jewelry, and I was like, no one knows what happened or how it got there. And it's with our new perspective, we're able to see that it's probably just the power of the holy corpse was having its effect here, giving righteous things to the people or whatever, all that stuff. But it doesn't lead to anything significant. Unless it's actually Toru! Oh my god, the true...
Even though the timeline doesn't match up.
It doesn't matter. True fact.
People just don't understand that the Part 9 JoJo is going to be the Bling Bling Baby, and that's how he becomes a millionaire.
Yes. Speaking of small children, Tsurugi, when we initially first meet him, is an actual psychopath. I think sometimes we forget that. An interesting choice on Araki's part to make the center of attention of our dramatic relevance be
insane
an insane child. We're supposed to feel bad for him, but I do feel bad for him by the end, but
yeah, they do. He does a good job later on, but
at the beginning, it's I don't care what happens to this child. Our first introduction to Tsurugi is him molesting Yasuho. So that's a good first foot forward there, buddy. And then the second thing he does is psychologically terrorize Yasuho around the city, and that's basically all that happens during this arc. I think it's literally just to set up Paper Moon King as an ability, which I think, okay, Paper Moon King is a very cool ability, and I like how over the part it kind of you can see the development of the ability. Initially, it just starts off as, you can you can make things kind of look like other things, you lose the ability to distinguish things, and by the end, it's just you can make any illusion look like whatever, essentially. By the end. Which I would not consider a plot hole or something he changed the ability. I'd consider that it's the ability growing or whatever. That's what I think.
I wouldn't even be shocked if one day we see Tsurugi again. I wouldn't be shocked if his abilities different even more.
That's a possibility for later parts.
Or it could even just be stronger. Maybe he can make it so that he can manipulate what faces you see or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. So a little weird note I'd like to add here is when I was first reading JoJolion, I had no idea why I thought this. I thought that the whole face switching thing and all that, and he makes text look like other text or whatever. I thought that was a super specific thing. I thought that it was only faces could be changed and text could only be made into, what does he make it? like Sesame Honey Cafe or whatever, because he's trying to mislead them or whatever to where they're going. I thought it was only that could be shown in text. I had no idea why. I think I was going brain dead mode for that portion. But that's just wrong. So when
I read about Araki's like inspiration for
Yeah.
Paper Moon King, and he said that he wanted it to feel like when you're like a little kid and you get like lost in a grocery store or something,
Oh,
and you like don't
fun.
know anyone, and so I found that was kind of cool.
Oh,
Good.
the one part the one part where Yasuho goes into a cab, which is in fact not a cab, and it has a bunch of One Piece references in it or whatever. Yeah, do you know about that? Yeah.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
isn't it like one of them is dressed as Luffy?
It's like there's little ornaments around the car or whatever, and it's also funny because the faces of the ornaments are also look different or whatever. But there's Luffy, there's Chopper.
It's Luffy,
Yeah,
Chopper on the side, and then you have I think that looks about. That's it. I'm only on chapter 145, guys.
And
so
I
if there's any
haven't
other
read it.
references,
I just know the major characters. So
yeah.
Okay. Other notes about this part of the story is when I was rereading it, I think it's kind of interesting how it just kind of happens and then ends. Like there's no real they don't really defeat it. At least I don't remember. No, I don't remember. I think it literally just Tsurugi feels bad and just cancels it or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's literally it.
Yeah, but
it's just Tsurugi goes and then it's done. But yeah, no, I like it. And it again makes you like more suspicious of the Higashikatas if you're like this little kid is like a demon.
But after this point, the Higashikatas are no longer the villain fights essentially.
Yeah, once King Nothing shows up, you're pretty much like, okay, he's a good guy.
After that point, Josuke interrogates Snorusuke or whatever, and this is like the first real like talk they've had where they're actually talking to each other about the plot and not just you can live at my place now, yada yada yada. It's like, please tell me, did you kill Kira Yoshikage or whatever?
Yeah.
And he was like, no, I actually was chill with that guy. He was cool. And then we get to see a tiny bit of King Nothing, but he doesn't actually show the ability. He's just like, here's a little glimpse of it. I have puzzle pieces or whatever. And King Nothing is a very good design.
I love
also very good name. Should have been used more. It's used like twice throughout the entire part.
Yeah.
And it should have been used more because it's so cool.
Once they add Norsuke into All-Star Battle R.
Yes.
We'll see Nothing.
If you're watching this All-Star Battle R, people, add him now. Right this second. I want to see it. All right. So now we are introduced to the initial, like the main villain group, the Rock Humans. We meet the Rock Humans now. In the first encounter with Yatsuyo, I believe it's just Yatsuyu, that guy, the I am a rock guy, the I am a rock guy. I think this is a really good introduction to Rock Humans as a whole. I like how the battle isn't just escaping the ability of the stand, but also trying to figure out the ability of the Rock Human itself. Like they're not sure where they're getting hit from because they don't realize like the rocks or whatever is actually just a dude sitting there. It's
one thing after going back through the series like and stuff like this, I find it interesting how part 7 he had like Johnny and Gyro as the main duo, and then now he has Josuke and Yasuo as the main duo.
Mm-hmm.
You don't really like have that in the first 6 parts. Like you have more like groups instead of duos, but he seems to be going for duos more, which I like. Because Yasuo's in basically every major battle in some way.
Like for example, in the I Am a Rock fight, Yasuo's kidnapped Yasuho, which that's hard to say. I'm gonna confuse those two names a lot.
Yeah. I just say I Am a Rock or whatever.
Okay, I'm just gonna say what's I think the Eyes of Heaven translation is I Rock or something like that. But I Am a Rock guy. He's kidnapped Yasuho and he's taking her hostage, and Tsurugi is also kind of helping out. He's like, this dude knows how to cure the rock disease, so I'm helping him get rid of Josuke because he's bad, or apparently. And Norisuke's like, no, stop that, Tsurugi. That's like wrong. Please, could you let us not die? And then they break into they break into the bunker and find that like, oh, everyone's gone. How'd he get out? He must have some special ability, and he does, because he can turn into a rock, which is surprisingly not the ability of I am a rock, but just him. He's a rock dude. I will point out it's not the biggest discrepancy, but Yatsuyo seems to be able to have a large amount of control over like when he becomes a rock or whatever. But this is like, of rock humans, this seems pretty unique. Mostly once they turn into a rock, they go into sleep mode essentially, and it's very, very hard for them to wake up for that, and they usually go to sleep for like months.
We also see the other ability where Yatsuyu takes the plastic barriers out of his eyes.
Oh yes,
to waterboard Yasuo.
The very beginning. I think that's just I don't think that's like
it's they mention later on about how the rock humans are like all silicate based life forms or whatever.
Of carbon based.
So
yeah.
it's basically just it's just a rock human ability that we never see again.
It's just him initially. It's just Araki initially showing off like these guys are much stranger compared to humans. So we shouldn't expect them to function the same way. Like how
which I think is good, even though people will also
yeah.
call it an Araki forgot and be like,
I wouldn't consider that.
It's not an Araki forgot because it's literally just what other rock human would ever need to use that in the part? Like.
Also, can Yasuo get a break, by the way? She just got like she just went from getting terrorized by Tsurugi to getting waterboarded and then kidnapped. And like Yasuo does nothing but suffer throughout this entire part. That's the through line here. So the ability I just realized we never actually talked about the ability of the stand itself. I am a rock, which is to move things towards the center of other things, which I think once it gets to like the bristles of like the seeds or whatever, it's a pretty graphic ability actually. I'm a fan. It's once you see like the little needles like digging under their skin, it's like it's pretty
that's
pretty
gonna
scary.
look gnarly in the anime.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's gonna be like Planet Waves in part 6.
That makes a lot of sense. And also the ending to this fight is very, very cool because we see Josuke go Kira mode basically, where he just drowns him to death. He's like,
which is something we will see again very soon. This is just Araki's like, you could just murder people out in the open.
This is the part of the story where at least for me it feels JoJolion transforms from a part 4 like spiritual successor to a part 5 spiritual successor. Yeah. In terms of the fights are very life or death. They have to deal with like gangs and like peddling stuff, and it's there's a lot of similarities to part 5 that people don't think about because they only think, oh, it's Josuke, oh, they're in Morio, oh, it's part 4. But there is quite a lot of part 5 connections. And this group is very similar to Part 5's La Squadra, being like
it's also very similar to the Pillarmen.
Okay, so rock humans being the equivalent to Pillarmen, it makes a lot of sense because the Pillarmen originally had the ability to. It wasn't really elaborated on much, but they were pillar men. They were stone in the walls, but once they come out of the walls, they never actually reuse the ability again. I don't know what triggers it. We never learn, but I think the rock humans are like, Araki's thought process was like, what if I used the Pillarmen's ability for them to remain in place and be like these eternal beings or whatever, and made it like weaker, like step it down a bit, because Pillarmen were very much like, these are the strongest living beings on the planet. So, but like, what if I step that down? What if there was this whole group of people?
He basically just made a ton of them that were weaker.
Yeah, there's weak Pillarmen. They're still strong, they're durable, and they live much longer lives than humans. But even though they have like statistical advantages over humans, they're like not the dominant species. They're the recessive or whatever. They're the it's described later on as like they're the fallback species in case carbon-based life like died out or something, which is essentially every single rock human we see throughout this entire part. Their motivation is just we want to surpass humans. In order to do that, we gotta like make a lot of money, and we'll climb up the social ladder, and then we'll have all the fruit, and then we'll control everyone. And speaking of the fruit, we get a small introduction to Lokakaka as Tsurugi spots Owasuke, the funny rock dog, eat a fruit, and he gets quote unquote cured of a rock-like disease, which is just Tsurugi misinterpreting Owasuke's like rock hardening ability.
Yeah.
But that's our first introduction. It's like this fruit is a special fruit, and it seemingly can cure disease or whatever, which we later it's equivalent exchange or whatever. It's very different because it does kind of make sense to me. It's like, why would a rock human need to cure rock disease? So.
Oh yeah, what's your opinion on I'm a Rock's design?
I think it could have been made. It could look pretty clunky, but I think he makes it weird enough to where it like passes the point of looking goofy and looks pretty. It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, I agree.
That's my thoughts, at least. Also I like the on the one he did a color page of it, and I like the colors. It's like a red and like a blue. It's that's just nothing much, but I'm a fan of that. All of Rocky's color choices for everything are always peak. That's what I think.
Honestly, I even like the Shueisha coloring for JoJolion too.
It's just a bit of an altered version of that. Most of the times, Shueisha, how they pick their colors, what I've noticed, this is my theory, it's never been like officially stated or anything, but it seems obvious to me, is they'll see one official like colored like volume thing or chapter cover or whatever, and they'll be like, we're using that for the color scheme or whatever.
Yeah.
Because they just do a slightly altered version for I Am a Rock and
Thankfully,
Yatsuyo.
they didn't do Orange Josuke.
Yes. Who in All-Star Battle, they decide to make Josuke's sailor outfit all orange for some reason, and Soft and Wet this really odd yellow and green, and it's just it's not aesthetically appealing in the slightest. And I don't know where they got that from. Eyes of Heaven, they changed it to. I think Soft and Wet's some weird color, but Soft and Wet's not as much of a big of a problem as just the literal sailor outfit not being good coloring. Doesn't look like a sailor outfit. Like, come on. But thank God that Shueisha did something right.
Still yellow. Soft and Wet's still yellow and green in Eyes of Heaven.
Okay, it's not good, but like, okay, at least they did half of it right. Okay, cool. I was moving on to the Lokakaka. Thing I'll bring up now is the whole Rokakaka versus Lokakaka debacle that happened ages ago. It is officially Lokakaka, but it wasn't like that for fan translations for years and years, because Japanese the L's can be replaced with R's because it's not the same alphabet.
Until Wonder of You arc.
Yeah, the Wonder of You arc, we see a drawn test tube with English Lokakaka on it. So that was the first time we'd ever seen a spelling. All the other times it was in Japanese. So the translators saw Rokakaka and presumed it was Rokakaka, so they wrote it Rokakaka, but no, it was Lokakaka the whole time. So you might hear me accidentally say Rokakaka on occasion, because that's what I would read back when it was coming out. But pretty much most fan translations that are like still doing JoJolion at all, if they are doing it, I've usually changed it back to Lokakaka retroactively because that's what it's supposed to be. But if I ever mess it up and call it Rokakaka, that's the reason. Don't judge me. And on the topic of the Lokakaka, there are three like main plot points, and they all revolve around the whole story of JoJolion. Is Tsurugi's rock disease, the Lokakaka trading, and Holly's sickness, which are all like intertwined with each other. These are like the three main driving points for pretty much every single character is motivated by one of these plot points. The villains were driven by the Lokakaka. Josuke wants to cure Holly, so he wants the Lokakaka. Tsurugi thinks he can get fixed by the Lokakaka, and the Higashikatas want to cure Tsurugi. So everyone, it all revolves around this. It's. I think this is the best part of the story, where all of the plot points we've been leading up to at this point start to actually converge, and it feels actually right.
And it's pretty cool because it's what I like about JoJolion too is early on, like chapter 1 through chapter 55, which is the end of Vitamin C.
Mm-hmm.
He answers basically every mystery in the arc.
Yeah, and
besides some of the stuff with the rock humans. So pretty early on, people like had their bearings with what was going on, which I like. Mm-hmm. But also kind of bites him in the ass later when he wants to extend JoJolion for how long it went.
Yes.
Because I think JoJolion is too long.
Yes, it probably could have cut down on a few places. But I think this like middle section of JoJolion is probably the best section, I'd say, in my opinion at least.
As we're gonna get to, Vitamin C is my favorite arc. Everyday Summer Vacation's a peak arc. I think honestly, if you go Everyday Summer Vacation through Ozone Baby, that's like the sweet spot.
Yeah, we won't cover that later stuff in this video, but that whole mid third section is like the best set.
Yeah.
Of JoJolion.
I think we're kind of done with the Yatsuyu.
Yeah, I'm just
part
trying.
Now you want to go.
There's the only other things I can think of. There's funny lines from Narusuke about finding Yatsuyu's dick. I remember that. That's the funny part. Yeah. He also mentions that stands are like showing people your asshole. That's the other funny thing. Narusuke's a funny guy. That's all I have to comment. That's it. That's my insightful commentary. I thought that was funny.
So next is chapter 33 through 38, Everyday Summer Vacation, which I know is one of your favorite arcs.
Yes, yeah. I love Jobin is like one of the best characters in all of JoJo, and he is so good, and he should have been the main villain of the entirety of JoJolion, and this arc is like one of the reasons why I think that. Jobin's presence in this arc alone is so like overpowering and in like a weird way endearing, I guess. It especially like I don't want to jump to literally the end of the arc, but I just got to mention this up front. Like the end of the arc, he like it's like threatening when he's like he's trying to like give him, he's like makes his nose bleed and Josuke's nose bleed at the end and everything, and it's like really like, oh, this dude's like serious. Like you go through this whole arc where it's a funny fight with beetles, and you lead to the end where like Josuke's life is in danger. It's a very that kind of this arc as a whole encapsulates the entirety of Jobin's character and why I love Jobin. So let's move back to the beginning of this fight, where Josuke, we aren't sure why at our very first, but we'll get a flashback of him talking to Tsurugi. Josuke wants to talk about beetles with Jobin, which is Jobin's funny JoJo character trademark. Is that
I have to mention in the original, the first full appearance of Jobin, we have the maybe best looking food in all of JoJo, which is the parfait.
The fruit the fruit parfait.
The melon parfait.
The melon, yes. Yeah. The which in retrospect, with Narusuke talking about flow so much, makes that section actually pretty thematically relevant to later once we get to like flow of calamity and like there's positive and negative flow, but from our perspective, it just seems like Narusuke talks about eating fruit and having customers for a whole chapter, and then Jobin shows up and starts talking about poetry. It's like the first thing he does. Which I'm just saying, if Jobin was the main villain, would have been a great introduction for him. It would have been so so
No.
memorable. Oh my
And
god, look at him.
what would have made him so unique as a main villain would have been him not being like overtly just evil.
Yeah,
You
from
know?
like the start or whatever. The closest we've ever been to like you see someone and the characters are like, oh, that guy's just a normal dude, is like one chapter where they bump into Kira and like one part where they bump into Poochie and don't realize it, but immediately afterwards they're like, oh, this guy is
Technically, if
the
you
main
really want to
villain.
stretch it, for the time skip in part 1, he thinks Dio is like his friend.
Yeah, but that's like no, what I'm saying is their like very initial encounter, their very
He's
first
also,
encounter
yeah,
is
hostile.
bad.
Exactly.
He immediately is hostile from the very
Yes.
second he exits the carriage.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. But Jobin, he shows up. He's just the son, the eldest son, and he's talking about some poet guy that I've never heard of in my life before. It seems like specifically JoJolion has a lot of like necessary, like, oh, here's a little translator's note. This is what this means, by the way. This is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
A lot of other that's not a complaint. That's just I noticed when reading it. There's a lot of like moments that are like you probably wouldn't get what this is talking about, like out of context.
Well, I think it's also because it's set in Japan compared to Part 7, which is in America, Part 6, which is in America, Part 5 is in Italy.
Even Part 4 doesn't like have a bunch of they're saying random Japanese culture stuff or whatever.
I think it's more that Part 8's Mario is less fictionalized than Part 4's
It's less
Mario.
stylized and it's more okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's more just insert Japanese town here.
Yeah, that's fair. Anyways, Josuke has learned from Tsurugi, which is Jobin's kid or whatever, that it's very easy to get information from Jobin as long as you can beat him in a beetle fight of all things, because he just loves beetle fights, which is such a fun thing. And so Josuke is going to interrogate Jobin in the form of a beetle fight, and Joshu's also there for commentary. He gets the speedwagon in this section.
Joshu, everyone's favorite character,
Joshu. Okay, I will say this section of the story is the funniest Joshu gets to be in. It's because
no, Malagra Man.
No, it's not. Okay. That's a difficult decision. No, I think he's funnier in this part. I think he's funnier in this section because there's that one part where like he's forced to cheer on Josuke or whatever, and he's like super. It's fun. It's explaining the joke makes it less funny. You're trying to sabotage my argument here. No, please don't comment Milagro gang in the comments below to prove me wrong. Please do not give us the engagement. But thus starts the epic tussle between Josuke's beetle and Jobin's beetles, and it is like peak JoJo. It's incredibly hard to describe my feelings like reading through it. It's just everything is executed so incredibly well, and it's so creative for being a beetle fight. Like I think I mentioned this last time with a different fight. I don't remember which one it was, but a beetle fight being like this interesting couldn't happen in like 99% of all other series. There was it would have to be stylized specifically like JoJo in order for it to be this peak fiction. The introduction of Speed King, I think, is a highlight of this
Speed
fight.
King's design too.
The design, and the initial like an introductory double page spread or whatever where he's standing behind Jobin and Jobin isn't even thinking about it, because he doesn't think that Josuke is like a stand user or whatever, so he just kind of has it out behind him, and Josuke is just kind of like nervously pretending not to see it. And it's kind of I think it's kind of cool how the beginning of the beetle fight is it's just a beetle fight, but slowly over it both characters are using their stands secretly to interact with the fight, so it's a stand fight, but like neither character thinks the other person knows it's a stand fight. So it's very it is very cool. And Jobin's ability at first seems to be exceptionally pretty weak. It just its description is just slightly increases the temperature of 1 point, which all that's at first it's just like it melts a bit of
You have
wax
fever.
or whatever. Oh, the temperature of the room is slightly increased, which makes the beetle like fight better or something, and that's it. But by the end of this arc, and then by the end of JoJolion, Speed King is a very strong ability in terms of combat potential. Where if it touches you at the right point, you are instantly downed. Essentially,
I like how he teased the like future uses of Speed King by having that little blurb where it's like we don't know its true extent, because then you have later
and
on
he
where
even he tries to
or he
get
can releases the heat later, like way later on.
yeah he tries to give Josuke tissues or whatever, which kind of mirrors how Ojiro will later be killed by Speed King with the money. He'll put the heat in the money, and then he touches the money, and then he dies. And Jobin's trying to get him to use tissues or whatever, so he can probably kill him at this point. Because by the end, he's like super suspicious of Josuke after he getting the Lamborghini or whatever.
Yeah, we didn't even mention that.
The gold Lamborghini just has
literally bets a Lamborghini for it.
It's incredibly funny. And at first he like shaves off his eyebrow or whatever. That's like the first one.
Oh,
and Jobin wants to lick Josuke's eyeball. That's like his bet or whatever. if Josuke
now we
loses.
see why Tsurugi's such a freaking weirdo.
He's such a weirdo because his parents are psychopaths.
Also,
Mitsuba's a
I
psychopath too.
This is when it's stated where Tsurugi's like, yeah, my dad's like super weird, right?
Yeah. Tsurugi's like, my dad is more of a child than I am, and Tsurugi is like, I believe like. So, again, I think we talked about last time that the age is inconsistent.
Like 8 and 11.
Point is, he's very young, and Tsurugi's like, this dude is stupid. This dude is a literal man child, and it makes me forget that like Jobin's in his 30s or like early 30s or whatever.
It makes him seem like literally maybe like a few years older than Joshu.
Yeah, which would of course doesn't make sense story wise, but just personality wise, even design wise, he looks pretty young. But JoJo characters overall, just
wow, I'm like JoJo characters looking young. Wow,
I believe
JoJo literally regressing in age.
The only character in this, the only two characters in JoJolion that look like older are like the head doctor, who looks like a decrepit old man, and Narusuke, but that's because he just has stubble, and that's like the only defining feature that just. And when to make Narusuke look in the flash, oh my god, shut up, freaking poor Tom. In the Wonder of You flashbacks or whatever, to have Narusuke look young, it's literally just him without the stubble, and he looks like way younger, and it works effectively. But yeah,
it's like in the Saw movies where they have the main killer would have the baseball bat backwards.
They have John Kramer or whatever. What's his face?
Yeah, to have him play the flashback.
They have him just have like earlier like year-wise like clothes, like his outfit's like supposed to look younger, but he looks the exact same age, like an old dude. Jobin's design as a whole is also very, very good. I think it like it pushes the line between this looks like a really weird design and this is just like a regular dude, because he has like for a JoJo character, his hair besides like the back is pretty normal. It's just like he has a little clip in there. The back of the hair has like there's like spikes coming out of it or whatever, like at the very back and everything. And he has the weird like baseball lines on his face or whatever. But like he's just wearing a hoodie. If you took out the spikes or whatever, it would look just like an outfit or like a tracksuit or whatever. But yeah, and I think that Jobin's Shueisha coloring is one of the best colorings they've done in terms of color schemes. It's the green hair is a very inspired choice. So it's not like a weird neon green. It's like it's a nice shade. And the outfit just has the right amount of color in order to make it look cool, but not the like for example, Toru's like gaudy yellow pants are distracting and weird, but Jobin's is very balanced and nice. So good on you, Shueisha coloring team, for once. Good on you, not making errors. One thing I will say though is when reading through the black and white version, because I've read both the colored and the black and white version, Jobin's like protruding spikes coming out from his uniform in the black and white, they look like they're the same color as his jacket. They're not shaded differently. There's no cutoff point, but in the colored version, there's a clear divide between the spikes being colored and the clothes, which I think it looks good, so it's not big. It's not that big of a problem. But if you're going with the intent that Araki has, even in Araki's official colorations of Jobin, it's one solid color usually for the suit. But besides that, like at most artistic nitpick, peak character design and color.
So are we? I think we wrapped up with Everyday Summer Vacation.
I'll have plenty of other times to rant about how much I love Jobin later on. Do not
definitely.
fret.
Maybe even a whole video about it. Too.
Doobie-Wah! Everyone loves Doobie-Wah.
Okay, Doobie-Wah time. Chapter 39 to 46. Doobie-Wah and Love Love Deluxe.
Funny rock human Aisho, which I'm not even gonna try and pronounce his last name. That's like 5 syllables right now. I'm on the wiki page right now. I remember he's Aisho, but nope, never. I said I wouldn't try, and I tried and I failed.
There you go. Diane NG Yama.
One of the more like I'd say one of the more like tragic rock human characters. We get his backstory where he has this like girlfriend or whatever. And then she's like, I'm gonna go to rock human mode and sleep for a while. Don't freak out, okay? And then she immediately like cheats on him and sells his house when he's in sleep mode, and that's like the first thing she does. And it's just like later on, we'll get the note that rock human relationships like never end well or whatever, and they usually end in murder, I believe is the specific phrasing of that. And this is one of like 2 examples, I believe, where it's not even the rock human's fault that it ended badly or whatever, because we'll get what's his face, who's Blue Hawaii again, what's
Dolomite.
his name? Dolomite had a very similar thing where he was in a relationship and then he got like electrocuted or whatever.
That guy also, he ended up looking like just Anakin at the end of Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah, he got, that things didn't turn out well for him, but I think it's interesting how Araki chooses to portray all the rock humans as like very plainly evil, but for the most part they're not the ones in the wrong for most of it. They are of course also the ones trying to like overthrow all of society, but a point that is also made, like, I think also is mentioned specifically in this section by Tsurugi, is that the Lokakaka like trading, like the peddling isn't illegal. It's just fruit. They're not like doing anything wrong or anything. It's just like they're.
I think it plays into later where they're doing the experiments that are illegal. Is the main
that's
thing.
At this point in the story, it's just like they're pretty greedy people. That's about also they want to kill Josuke because of vague things that happened in their past that we aren't quite sure of yet. And this arc also, we've had like long distance automatic stands, like, well, not automatic, but like, you know what I mean. Like Paper Moon King, for example, was long distance, but Doobie-Wah specifically, I think, really exemplifies the JoJolion like style of abilities, where the ability is literally just if you breathe, you start to die, and that's the ability. Survive. Go back.
It's also Yasuo and Tsurugi again, which I was like, it was just weird because it felt like we had just read
Yasuo and Tsurugi
Paper Moon
section.
King and stuff, so it was like, oh my god.
Look, I'm just glad that Tsurugi's not like a
arc
creep this time. Okay, I'm glad that they're teaming up and not enemies, at least.
I do like Doobie-Wah being just like a tornado, though. Yeah,
it's just a tornado that they summon from there. It gets pretty. It's pretty terrifying. The idea of like having to hold your breath has always been like a kind of a weird psychological thing for me. Like whenever people in movies are like drowning or whatever. It's like I guarantee I would definitely not survive in their scenario. I am not good at holding my breath at all.
Yeah.
So imagining them going through that is like scary.
One part of this that I really like enjoy and gets into the body horror that they kind of really get into later is the part where the old man eats the fruit to like walk again and his eyes turned into rocks and stuff.
Yeah, like he gets his legs back or whatever, but in exchange with the
and he like runs over to his wife and his eyes are just like piercing rocks.
They just start falling out of his face. Every single instance of equivalent exchange is pretty gruesome, actually.
Except for Josuke, but we'll get into that later.
Yeah. One cool moment that I like during this fight is that Yasuho and Tsurugi, they try and like bypass needing to breathe or whatever by like using what is it, the little oxygen masks or whatever. They find like an ambulance or whatever, and they try and use like one of those oxygen mask things to put it on so they don't get chased by Dubiwa anymore. But then Dubiwa just appears in the mask or whatever. It just comes out of them, and it's Dubiwa is overall just is busted. I think it's a very strong ability. If they were to not have any idea who the user was, it would have been a hopeless battle for them. It would have been for practically any other character. If it was like just Josuke in the battle, it definitely would have gone very differently. I don't think Josuke would have made it out if it was just him by himself. Of course, if Araki had actually written it like that, he would have invented some way for him to get out. But I'm saying just like in a hypothetical JoJo alternate universe, a Josuke versus Aisho with Josuke just in the middle of nowhere. Even with such a powerful stand like Soft and Wet, there's no way that Dubiwa would not win in that encounter. Speaking of pretty busted stand abilities, Paisley Park in this arc, I believe, introduces a new aspect to its ability where it gives Yasuho a prompt on like her computer or her phone or something of like you have to select a choice of something. I believe the first option is, I don't remember, but it shows like here's one thing, here's another thing, and she's like, I don't know what this means, and selecting one option will like cause a event to happen that will be in Yasuho's favor relating to the item she selects or whatever. Like she brings up how one time she misses and she doesn't select a choice, and one of the choices was a ladder or whatever, and later they're trying to get out a window, but there's a ladder, but it's like too far away, and she's like, oh, if I had selected the ladder probably would have been there. And that is an insane ability to think about. Is just like, oh, you could just manipulate the events of history to your gain as long as you just select the button in time. Which Paisley Park is already pretty vague.
Calamity, you could say.
No, stop! She'll use this button thing a few more times later. I think she does it during Ozone Baby, I think, or sometimes she chooses things. But it is pretty strong. Paisley Park is very vague in its abilities, and we don't even really fully understand. It's just basically, at first it seems to be just like, oh, it interfaces with technology in order to guide her in the right direction. But then it's like, no, it actually guides the entire universe towards the direction, which I guess, I know you joked about saying Wonder of You, but I guess if you're going with the themes of JoJolion, it works out. That's a big part of it. So, and again,
totally
Josuke,
supremacy. He was here the whole time.
Stop it. Okay, stop it. It's true, but stop it. Josuke would not have been able to get to the point that he did without Yasuho and her abilities or whatever, which I think is that does go along with the themes nicely. Very well done, Araki. Good job on making your stand function in the story. The way Aisho is defeated also is such a memorable moment for me, where Tsurugi makes every single bus look like Jobin, and just a slowly walking Jobin runs into Aisho, and suddenly Aisho implodes into rock.
It's so funny.
which is also hilarious because it means this small child has committed murder like within the first third of the story.
Is Tsurugi the youngest person in JoJo to commit murder?
That might be true because like there's younger stand users like freaking is it Manish Boy, the name of the freaking baby with Death 13 in part 3? I think it is.
Yeah.
But
Does
he doesn't
rock
actually
paper
kill anyone.
scissors?
Rock, paper,
Does
scissors
rock
kid never
paper
kills
scissors?
anyone.
Really? Wait, well, Death 13 kills a dog, so like I guess he
I'm
doesn't kill
talking
any
about people. I'm saying people.
Yeah. I would assume at one point the baby killed like one person, but we don't see it on screen. Yeah, I think on screen.
At least Tsurugi's in the running. Tsurugi's at least number 2. I don't think there's any other option. There might have been some backstory thing to Death 13 where the baby had like killed a single person in the town or whatever that they found him in, and we just I'm forgetting because part 3 is very long and I haven't read it or watched it in a while. But Tsurugi has to be in the title for youngest murderer in the JoJo's universe, which is a very interesting title to hold. Congratulations, Tsurugi is now mentally scarred for the rest of his life, and there will be a lot more mentally scarring later on. But that would conclude the Dubiwa arc. I don't believe there's anything else that we need to talk about.
Yeah, I think we can move to Level Up Deluxe now, which I think is a little more of a filler arc.
It's more. I think the inclusion of the Aphex twins was unnecessary. I think just having it be like, oh, here's Carrera who reveals lore, very important lore.
Very important.
But
yeah.
then suddenly just, oh, here's 2 rock humans and they tussle and they die. And that's, wow, amazing, fantastic.
So, one kind of interesting thing that there's a debate about, and I am firmly on one side of it, is that we see a photo of Kira and Josefumi, who we see Josefumi here for the first time ever.
Yes, Carrera
in this photo, Josefumi has a Joestar birthmark. I personally believe that is not a mistake, and that he is farther on the time or on the family tree related
than we realize.
To the Joestar
that's
family.
what
There is enough siblings that are there and that were born in Morio that I think it totally makes sense that he is actually a Joestar.
That's fair. That makes sense. I'm not sure what to think until like later on, even when like part 9 is like done. I need all the info we can get, because I just don't think there's enough information right now. I think if this was any other plot point, for example, Carrera after this arc is never seen again, even though she says that she will come back.
Technically, she is seen in flashbacks.
I don't mean flashbacks. I mean being involved in the story. That's what I mean. Showing up. I don't mean a speech bubble where we see her head as like an emote or whatever.
Actually, I think they do mention her in the last chapter.
I do. No,
they do. Yeah.
I think Josuke mentions her or something like that.
That's so funny. They mention her on the very, very last chapter.
In the last chapter, I believe, because they meet Josefumi's mom at the very end, and Josuke says like, Carrera told me after Carrera told me about Josefumi, I looked her up and found her. But besides that, Carrera never actually shows up physically again. Something like that, for example, I'll equate to like, okay, I don't think he needed her anymore. He was considering bringing her back, but never actually needed her, so he just didn't. Something like having a Joestar birthmark, which is so intertwined with the family tree, which has always been a huge, long-running through line through every single JoJo part, that I can't like give an opinion about until we have a complete picture of parts in the future. Even
we are going to get. I'm standing by this. We are going to get a full family tree in part 9 with Josefumi on it, and it'll be like super clear for it. Because I just don't think that he would have put that there for. He's pretty conscious of when he puts the Joestar birthmark, and he remembers to put it on. The only time ever he's done something like this where he mistakenly put a Joestar birthmark, and even this I don't think it was a mistake, is when in a art show he put it on Lisa, which I think was just artistically supposed to show she is a very integral member of the Joestar family. I don't think he was being like, actually, she always had it or something like that, which would be stupid. I think
he literally could have just been like, I want to give her the Joestar birthmark to signify her being like an honorary Joestar for this specific art piece. It's not a thing that she actually has. It's just like representative or whatever of it or whatever. But yeah, Josefumi's introduction, the reason why we first the reason why this arc happens is because Carrera believes that Josuke is Josefumi from the very beginning, and Josuke's like, oh, this is intriguing. I should investigate this. And we learn the revelation of this is Josuke's other half. We finally have the two pieces together. We've known Josuke was part Kira since like first 10 chapters, easy. But now we actually this is our first lead, and Josefumi, when we actually get to see more of his events of the story, Josefumi's fun. Josefumi's a good design for it's once you get to this point, it's hard to characterize. Oh, this character is alternate. This character, like Josefumi,
he's literally alternate Jotaro because he's the son of Sadafumi
and Holly. Yeah,
and Holly. So
and he's Josuke by name, and Josefumi is essentially Josuke. He has the same hair.
Josefumi is Holly's kind of son in terms of he looks to her as a mother figure.
Yeah, he literally says Holly's basically my mom. So
he's basically there's literally 3 characters that are Jotaro in this.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and Josefumi's name is Joseph, by the way.
Because of I think we can talk about this now. I mean, I'm sure we'll bring it up again, but it's Joseph Sandal.
Yeah, he
and they find and his grandfather finds
Joseph,
or whatever, and was like, "Oh man, that would be a cool name, wouldn't it be?"
And
yeah.
I'm just gonna say, Josefumi's hair is supposed to be like a pompadour, but it's very, very flat or whatever. That's just Araki's art style changing. I've seen if you look at pictures of a Part 4 Josuke in a Part 8 art style, his hair looks just like Josefumi's. It's the same thing.
The only difference is Josefumi has more even more buzz cut sides, but that's not a big deal.
Yeah, it's
just different. Yeah, I really like how they. We'll get into it with Vitamin C. I like stuff like that. Aphex Brothers.
Pretty boring.
It's boring. It's forgettable. I think the story just takes a tiny bit of a dip here. I was just not interested in shot key number 1 and shot key number 2. It's okay.
I think the ability of I think it's number 1 where it switches the hands. It has some visually interesting things, like he grabs the wires or whatever and it starts coming out of his hand. You can see it shrinking from the other part. It's that's a cool little visual thing. Shot key number 2 or whatever, which I believe is the poison gas bag, is probably up there for me of one of the worst stands of the entire series because it is so nothing. It is a soccer ball, and it's got poison in it, and it almost does nothing. It's its abilities itself are kind of hardly defined. It's so does he control the poison perfectly? Does it just? I think it's just literally just around the space of the bag there is poison gas. That's it. It's okay. I
do like how Araki uses the real life Aphex twin to make the 2 brothers and split it up.
Yeah, the singular Aphex twin into the Aphex twins.
It's a clever play on a music reference, which he doesn't do as often. So it's it's on the nose, but it works.
Yeah, that is cool. And I also think the guy playing with the soccer ball or whatever, and then their introduction is he plays with the soccer ball, and then the cops are like, "Stop it! That's dangerous. You're gonna this is a crowded area. It's gonna hit a car and get someone hurt." And he kills the cop with the ball, I think, or something like that. Something funny happens. I just remember that their introduction is better than anything else they do. Also, their gimmick is it's not even it's weird because in my brain the 2 of them are silent, but that's just because they don't talk a lot. They say things on occasion, but they don't really have. They're the least characterized rock humans in the entire part. They're just jobbers essentially. I do like the part where Josuke, instead of using his stand, just starts beating them up. He just starts going hand-to-hand combat, which would be perfect for a fighting game. You know, if only we had a fighting game that was out right now that could have an updated moveset for Josuke Part 8. That would be, you know,
Never happen.
that would be good. But apparently, no, we can't have nice things, so here we are.
Yep.
But
They're gonna add the Part 9 protagonist before you get any Part 8 go beyond stuff.
Yeah. But that one last thing I'd like to mention for being called the Love Love Deluxe arc, like Love Love Deluxe is just like practically an Easter egg in this park. It's just like, oh, it's like Yasuho, not Yasuho's. Oh my god, my name, that is the wrong character entirely. Yukako. There we go. Yukako from Part 4. It's Love Deluxe, but much worse. I said that the poison gas ball was like the worst ability. I meant that as in like ability wise, it like is boring and sucks story wise. I think that Love Deluxe is the worst, like in terms of power, is the weakest stand ability we've ever seen. It is, if you get someone else to touch a place, it can grow hair from there, which is
I'm just saying it could be Wonder Review and Tuskak 4 combined.
Love Deluxe hard clears Tuskak 4 in terms of power. You can't. It is not possible to stop its infinite strength.
The real power scalers understand.
I will say though, it is fun that how weak the ability is. Araki shows like 5 different ways that Carrera uses it to like live off of, like to con people. And she's
I
a
love
con
the
artist.
hair in the soup and stuff.
Yeah, like that's fun, but I will say power-wise, it's nothing. It is absolutely why have a stand at this point? Like, what do you? Imagine being gifted a stand,
Especially
and
because the design makes it look like it would be something more. It's like a pretty like. It's a punch ghosty-ish design.
Yeah, it does the JoJo stand thing where it's one of the stands where it has a stand form, but the stand form is entirely unnecessary and it doesn't even have to be ever summoned. I think what even makes it worse is that she can't grow hair on her own. She needs another person to do it. Like, and they have to touch where it grows. It's not like she can grow hair from anywhere. It's like, okay, it's someone else touches a specific place and hair grows specifically there. And it's not even permanent hair. It, like, she says it falls off after like an hour. It doesn't do anything. JoJolion has gotten to such a point compared to like Part 3 where the first couple stands you see are fire powers and you can punch anything with the force of a jackhammer until we're at the point where story-wise we have a stand that just grows a bit of hair. And that's all it does. But it's all right. I would have liked a more creative name, more creative reference than just adding another love onto the previous stand name. Which
Are you ready for Part 15, where it's the alternate universe and it's Love Deluxe?
Oh my god. Now that I think about it, that is so weird. How one of the only other stands from the previous universe to get directly referenced is Love Deluxe.
I never thought about that.
It just kind of clicks for me. Like I've always considered like, haha, it's a reference to Carrera. I'm mixing them up. So Yukako is Carrera. I'm fine. Everything's fine. I've always understood it's a reference to Yukako, but I've never considered this is one of the only ones we get where it's just the name is just basically the same thing. The design is completely different. It has its own stand form and everything, but the name. We never get this kind of thing ever. It's just this.
We literally have Killer Queen. Hermit Purple isn't even named.
Yeah, Hermit Purple doesn't get a name, but we get
Killer Queen is named, and the world is named, and that's it.
The three named stands that are direct references are Love Deluxe, the world, and Killer Queen, which is that's what a wild choice. I'm glad we get more references, but it feels just inconsistent. Come on, at least do something else too, man.
Love Deluxe is the key to all this. That's what Araki was saying.
I'm realizing now that I've talked about Love Deluxe more than I did like the entirety of like the whole Paper Moon King arc, basically. Okay, we should move on to absolute pinnacle, peak perfection JoJo. The moment everyone has been waiting for. Vitamin C and Killer Queen with our boy Damo. It's very
The
good.
flashback man himself, Damo.
That. Can we get this guy out of here? Can we make him leave the stage, please?
Okay. This is my favorite arc in all of JoJo, like period. I think it's perfectly structured. You have the flashbacks, which are some of the best, and then you have the present day with one of the coolest stand abilities, and he's like insanely threatening. But it all starts with one of the funniest moments where Dama walks in and he's like, I'm 23 years old.
He's like,
I
"Hey guys, I'm 23."
legitimately never laughed that hard reading JoJo except for that one
It's
point.
so
I
funny, and
was
everyone just looks at him like
laughing
he's
so hard.
crazy or whatever. Like, what
Yeah.
are you talking about?
And he like he flips his hair over.
Yeah, his little like toupee or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not even sure. It could just be weird JoJo hair. It doesn't. I'm not even confident at this point.
It's so funny. And
It's
then
very
the
funny.
fact that Hato believes him
Yeah,
too. And then you get into even the funnier parts is that when Damo is saying like how far he's gone with her to Norsuke, and Norsuke's like
and then he go. I don't remember. It's much funnier when you're actually reading it. But Araki is really funny sometimes, and I like forget that. Like he's very funny. The timing and pacing of all the jokes are very well done. Sometimes you of course get like ironically like Gyro's jokes are very clearly supposed to be just Japanese puns we don't get. I don't know if it's supposed to be genuinely funny or if Araki's like, look at how bad Gyro's jokes are. But at least we as English readers can like ironically be like, haha, this is nonsense and funny. But a joke, like a lot of JoJolion jokes are just funny just because they're funny, like genuinely, like there's no language barrier there. They're just very good moments. But this is also one of the most serious arcs in the entirety of JoJolion. So it's starting off like that is it's a nice bit of tension because you get this slow build up where everyone starts noticing like the fingerprints on all of like the walls and everything, which is a very cool JoJo like visual thing. Until like
also,
the entire house.
Another
is covered.
small thing that's cool is this entire time Josuke's looking up Josefumi and stuff.
Yeah,
like getting the photo
simultaneously, and then he's faxing the photo, and then once the fax comes over showing that Damo is taken over Josefumi's identity or whatever, that's when like everything like breaks down immediately. That's like when everything hits the hardest. It's a very well done like I can see it happening and like hear it in the anime or whatever. Like the fax machine printing out shows the photo, does a little zoom in with the menacing symbols or whatever, and then the music like kicks in. Color that would be the color swap change right there. I can feel it. The color swap right there. It is so. I'm glad that there are good parts of JoJolion, because if it was just stuff like Paper Moon King or like
contrary to popular belief, JoJolion is good.
JoJolion good. So, unfortunately, I wish it was horrible and bad. That way I could laugh at everyone who likes JoJo. Unfortunately, JoJolion peak, so we can't do that. I think the best parts of this arc aren't even the fight itself, it's the flashbacks.
It's the flashbacks.
It's the flashbacks by far. This has been the culmination to everything that the first half of JoJolion has been leading to, which Vitamin C and Killer Queen ends at exactly the halfway point, like chapter 55. It's it ends the exact halfway point. So it's whether Araki intended to prolong the part that long, or if it was going to be that long from the start, this is very clearly a significant part of the story. Just from these flashbacks hypothetically could have been in other arcs or whatever, or spread out even longer, but specifically having them all here is very important. Also, at this point, Damo being the leader of his gang, the Damokon or whatever, this is what we think are final bosses, at least for up until this point. This is the only like direct threat. It's like this is the leader of all the guys that have been attacking us so far. This is also the guy that caused Kira and Josefumi to die and be reborn. So this is our main villain, essentially. If JoJolion were to end here, it would have been a very nice, like, fun, short part, basically. there's a ton of really, really good stuff that happens later on, but I would have liked it. It's kind of interesting.
It could have been. It would have been interesting if he only did 50 chapters.
Yeah, just a 50 chapter.
Or like
part.
I said, you could have probably would have needed 10-ish more chapters after this to like fully wrap it up in terms of hammering home the whole breaking the curse stuff.
Yeah,
even though we haven't really gotten into that.
They would have had to fix that, but that's the only like thing left. They could have had the Lokakaka, even though by the end the Lokakaka is the cure, it's the new variant or whatever, and they have to put it on Toru or whatever. They could have done a very similar thing. They could have just used the fruit to fix it or whatever, which probably wouldn't have been as thematically resonant, but the ending of that wouldn't be too different than what we actually got. And this arc works wonderfully as a finale, even though it's not, which I have no problems with. I think having more flashbacks in JoJo period, I think that should be a thing from now on for as little parts as we'll likely get for the rest of JoJo. I think he should do more flashbacks. Every single time there's a flashback in JoJolion, it is like the best parts by far.
It's so good. And I love the part where one of my favorite panels is where it's Josefumi and Kira with both their stands out.
Yes. Oh, they finished their plan or whatever. Okay. Something I've always liked in JoJo that has been a thing ever since we've moved past part 3 essentially is having minor villains be reoccurring parts of the story. I've always thought it's added a lot. And part 8's even when I was rereading it, the Damokon, they show up a ton throughout it. Even after they die, they show up more often like after they die than before, basically. And tons of flashbacks. And it makes the universe really feel more whole. It really just completes it. In part 3, like villains would show up and then they get retired and then they'd just be out of it. But once part 4 started like showing like, oh, Tonio's back. Tonio wasn't a villain. You get what I'm saying. He was in like a fight encounter. They were bad. And no, we're friends or whatever. Or even just like part 5, you see La Squadra like throughout that first portion, like kind of they get their own backstories or whatever. They are working at the same time that Bruno's gang is. It's all very connected and nice. And part 7, there's reoccurring writers. But part 8, I think has like the best like minor villains become the focus or whatever in these flashbacks because they're all they have basically. Because later we'll find out that the TG University Hospital is actually like the main like center hub for the rock humans. That's like the highest level. And until we discover in part 9 the next level up, which has the mega rock humans in it.
Yes, the second TG University Hospital with Toru Jr.
We don't Toru, bro. Can you stop with this Toru Jr.? Oh my god. We don't know how much of the university hospital has been like taken over by these like fruit peddlers, I guess would be the best term for them. The smugglers, I guess.
Yeah.
The group, the rock humans, by the rock humans. I guess. Araki, why did you invent a race in your fictional story and make them all evil? That's an interesting choice there. But I guess all of the rock humans are bad, so I'll treat them as such until that is something that proves otherwise. We don't know how deep the rock humans are like intertwined with the hospital, but at this point in the story, that doesn't matter. So characters like Yatsuyu and Damo show up and they interrogate Kira and whatever, and it's super cool. And it's like, oh, look at these dudes. And they haven't even touched upon Vitamin C's ability of just Spice Girl, but better and more terrifying.
So cool.
Everyone just melts, whatever, and he uses bills to like cut people, whatever. And he starts torturing them or whatever in the flashback, and then Killer Queen has 8 million sheer heart attacks or whatever, and that's it. I love a good explosion panel, and we get a good moment where he sets off. He explodes the boat. Kira explodes the boat with like
Yes.
a billion sheer heart attacks, and they escape. And it's so good. And then it leads to them eating the fruit and everything, and they start falling apart, whatever. And it's just, there's so many good aspects of the flashbacks. It's actually insane how good it is.
Yeah, the whole interrogation scene where he's like cutting the spleen off of
Oh my god.
Kira
Yeah.
too. It's like, oh damn, and then you get to when they're on the shore,
Oh.
and Josefumi, like Kira's already dead at this point, basically.
Yeah.
He's like hanging on, but then he's dies either way. Josefumi eating the fruit, and you like see him disintegrating. That's gonna be, now that we have Made in Heaven like done in the anime, this is like the moment I'm waiting to see in the anime, how they do it, because it's gonna be so epic. Just like I can already imagine the music and like him slowly disintegrating, and then they get buried, and then it's like Kira's body was the dead one though. Like it could have created two of them, but Kira's body was left there and died of suffocation. So Josefumi is like the main one.
For as much as I complain about Toru has a nice moment at the very, very end as Toru's dying, where he's like, every single circumstance that has happened up to this point has been so miraculously lucky, and like this, if this new, because the new Lokakaka fruit had to be born from Kira finding out about the rock humans from the fish flying and hitting the guy, which tipped over the cart, which made Aisho bleed or whatever, which made Kira find out about rock humans. Kira investigated the rock humans, which led him to find out about Josefumi. Josefumi, previously in the past, was saved by Holly, so Josefumi wants to repay them by helping Kira. And so they work together, and they they miraculously are able to steal the branch. They graft the branch onto, like, ground blessed by a saint's corpse, which has fused them together in this circumstance, and only one guy can find this fruit, and this whole series of events, it was all by 100 to 1, like 100 million to 1 chance for any of this to happen, which is why basically the part is named JoJolion. It's evangelical. It's very this
Calamity.
This event. Yes, it's Calamity. I know the themes. I read the part. God damn it. The whole every single event of this part is like is blessed or whatever. It's stuff like this never happens in this universe, and it changes fundamentally how this universe works. And this moment specifically where Kira, it could have been Josefumi's like half that died or whatever, and it would have been the story would have been very different. But it wasn't, just by pure chance. Also, what was I gonna say? Jesus reference. Josuke is brought up from the earth 3 days after the body like dies or whatever. Get it? Haha. Like Jesus was resurrected 3 days after he was crucified. That's the reference. That's why another Giorno connection, because Giorno is also had major Jesus like implications. There's so much going on in JoJolion that it is outstanding. I understand why there is a lot of dropped points. There is so much going on that it's amazing that the part turned out as good as it did. It's a miracle. Wow, look at how good it is. Keeping its themes together, connecting to real life. Outstanding. The conclusion to the actual fight itself. Once we have finished the revelations of Josuke's origins, and the part is no longer about the mystery of his origins. We figured it out. We figured out every single piece of the puzzle we needed. We know everything now. The fight concludes in a very, very cool way. We get to see Hato's stand Walking Heart, which is also another fun, weird JoJolion ability where it's extending heals, which that's just saying that at this point is crazy. That's the ability is extending heals, and it's strong. It's one of the strongest physical stands that we encounter in JoJolion, because Dalmo gets messed up, man. Hato is pissed after getting almost killed by Damo, and he wrecks him, which leads to the end where Josuke just has no mercy for this man and just breaks his head open in the middle of the street. And it is graphic, it is beautiful, and it is absolutely wonderful.
It's hilarious too.
It's also there's an element of dark comedy to it. It's like this dude after he kills him, people just look over, and because there's just rocks covering the ground, people are like, did that guy just hit a statue? What happened here? And they just move on with their lives. They don't really it's ignoring the blood that has been known to come out of rock humans since the very beginning.
Josuke is like the most bloodthirsty JoJo.
Johnny gets there, but
Johnny does get there, but I think Johnny does it for more like he does it less. I think I could be wrong. Maybe the kill count's different.
I'd have to say JoJolion and Golden Wind definitely have the highest kill counts, I think, of the series, both each. A lot of the time, in terms of,
I think has a pretty high kill count. If you're saying before the universal reset, if you're counting that, it has like a very high kill count.
Oh yeah. I'm not including stuff like that. I'm not including incalculable events. I'm talking about on-screen deaths here.
Yeah. I was even saying with the entire main cast dying.
No, not a lot of people die in Part 8. A lot of people get killed. Like almost every single villain gets killed. Pretty much every single villain gets killed at this point. And then Jobin dies, and then if you count Kira and Josefumi dying, which it's pretty. I believe Araki makes it pretty explicitly clear that I think both of them die.
100% Kira dies. Josefumi
you can debate like interpretations of like, oh, what is life? That gets into more of a philosophical belief on what life is, which I'd say he dies at that point. Also, I think it would make more thematically sense that Josuke is a completely separate person. He's completely reborn from his previous self.
Yeah.
So in terms of that, I Part 8 has a very high kill count. And Johnny, I think, has a more, murderous intent to him, as is discussed by Ringo. But I think for the most part, Gyro is there to hold him back most of the time. But Josuke just kills people and doesn't need to think about the consequences or the moral implications. There's no consequence to it. The moral implications.
It makes it interesting because it is like totally like he has that Kira edge to him.
Yes, you forget that Josuke is such a goofy character at times. Like, oh, he's biting the chocolates and it's squirting everywhere and all his 4 balls, man. But then he starts torturing and murdering his enemies without a second thought. And he's like that from the very beginning. One of the funnier moments in the earlier chapters is when he's interrogating Ojiro or whatever, and he's like, "Hey Yasuo, can you look over there for a second? There's something really interesting over there." And he starts beating the crap out of Ojiro, but he doesn't want Yasuo to see it. He's been like that. He's been like this from the start, which Gappy has one of the most like complex characterizations out of any JoJo character, I'd say. It's very easy to categorize other main JoJos into like, these are their select character traits. Jonathan's noble. Josuke Part 4 is the nice one. Jotaro is the edgy one. And Gappy's like, he's a lot of things. he's a lot of stuff. That's also because he draws inspiration from, as we've discussed, like 5 different characters at minimum.
Yeah, literally, it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. But anyway, after that point, the arc is concluded, and everyone can live in peace knowing that Part 8 is over, and there will be no other villains in the series named Toru, and the part ended, and everyone was happy, and no one was ever upset again about anything happening in JoJolion ever again.
And then Toru Jr. came.
No! Well, that's a good place to stop part 2 of the JoJolion retrospective. Coming up for part 3 of the retrospective, we'll be covering everything starting from Milagro Man, and then we'll end right before Wonder of You starts. And then the final part will be just covering the entire Wonder of You to the finale. So stay tuned for that. Subscribe so you don't miss it. Make sure the notification bell is on, because I know how YouTube works. YouTube doesn't function if you don't click the stupid bell. And comment down below if you think that Jobin is better, or if Toru is a better villain. Or if Damo. You know what? Damo. Who do you think should have been main villain? Damo, Jobin, or who we got? Toru. What's your choice?
Tom.
Poor Tom. Comment Poor Tom gang sweet. If you are the Poor Tom believer, the true believer, and the morally and objectively correct one. All right? This has been JoJoVerdrive, signing off.
Coming through now, coming through now, coming through, shake it like it's heat, overdrive, coming through now, coming through now, coming through, watch where you're going, overdrive, let the downside up to top notch, whatever haters do, hot top down.